Do you want to take control of your health? Hear the truth about dieting and weight loss? Learn the best strategies for maintaining a healthy lifestyle? This is the Yossi Muller Show.
And welcome to the show. I'm Yossi Muller.
And I'm Duddy Muller.
Duddy is a chef with a background in nutrition.
Yossi is a nutritionist with a background in nutrition.
Every show we do, we take another myth and debunk it.
Crush it.
Today's topic is Orthodox Jews and obesity. People think that Orthodox Jews are more overweight than the general population.
Well, I know that I'm Orthodox and I'm overweight.
You are?
Yes. I mean, I did lose a lot of weight, but I could probably still lose like...
No. You're Orthodox?
Oh, that's a good one. I hope my Rebbe isn't listening.
I hope he is. He would be another listener.
Oh, well, I guess with mommy that makes two.
So that's what people think. People think that Orthodox Jews are more overweight than the general population, and the fact is that Orthodox Jews are substantially less overweight than the general population.
So we have this myth, as you claim, that Orthodox Jews are more overweight. How do you, Yossi, know that it's not true?
There are numerous studies that prove this. One study was done by Dr. Mendel Singer from Cleveland. There are also many studies brought down in the text, Jews and their food ways. You could put different bits of information together and see very clearly that Orthodox Jews are less overweight than the general population. In fact, a good 10 percentage points lower.
Is that true across the board, or is there some kind of breakdown within the Orthodox community?
So there are different sects of Orthodox Jews with varying degrees of obesity.
Different locations.
Different locations especially. Out-of-towners are certainly much less overweight than in-towners. I'm not going to get into all the specifics of the different sects. I don't want to get into fights.
Right.
What are your thoughts?
My initial thoughts were, it's so easy. We have so many events that surround food. Everything we do, we sit, we eat. We have Shabbos, we have Yom Tov.
Shabbos is once every 7 days.
Every
we
7
eat
days.
Tremendous amount of food.
There's a lot of focus on food.
And then twice a year, you mentioned Yom Tov, twice a year we spend an entire week eating.
Right, and even more than that if you're going to count Hanukkah. You were talking about Sukkot and Pesach, but Hanukkah also, it can be a high-calorie week.
Not to mention that most people take an 8-day Yom Tov and turn it into an entire month of eating. Pick Pesach, for example. People are turning their house over.
So you're going to restaurants every day.
I'm anyway not going to be following my diet on Pesach, so
Right.
I may as well start now.
Right, I have to get rid of the chametz, so it's pizza every meal.
Yeah, I started my diet, but I didn't realize that I have all these very fattening foods in the freezer that I'm not going to throw out, so I have to eat it. And then after Pesach, I need to finish the Pesach tikka cakes. Don't ask me why. That's a lot more common than you would think, but I needed to finish all the leftover Pesach tikka cakes, and I'm so excited that I'm able to eat chametz again. So
It's wasting food not to eat it.
yeah, so Orthodox Jews certainly have challenges, and one would think that the Jewish calendar will make up for these built-in days or weeks of overindulgence with the 6 days of the year that we are mandated to fast. But nope, they don't help because people eat a lot before the fast, and then after the fast, people eat so much. People eat so much more after the fast than they would have eaten had they eaten the whole day. And I'm not talking about volume. That Danish and orange juice, that may feel like not a lot of food, but it's still the amount of calories that you're supposed to have in an entire day. And, fast days are very tough for a lot of reasons. People, first of all, rationalize that they're entitled to eat more because they didn't eat the whole day. Second of all, people are super hungry once they start eating, which is very tricky because before they start eating, they're not so hungry. When they finishing fasting, they're hungry, but they're not so hungry.
Right, you could deal with it.
So you think you could have a Danish and orange juice, and then you'll stop, or you'll eat some eggs and bread or whatever. But then you get so hungry afterwards.
Don't be tricked by the fact that you don't feel that bad. You feel like you're in control. When you start eating, you could very easily lose control, and that's a big problem after fast. And that's one of the ways that fasts do not actually help you as far as weight loss.
So we mentioned Shabbos, we mentioned Yom Tov, we mentioned that fasts don't help. And to make my point stronger, there's actually a 2015 study in the Journal of Religion and Health that says that overweight people eat much more on Shabbos and Yom Tov than thin people do.
So overall, you look at them on a regular day, you won't see that much of a difference of their diet, but on Shabbos and Yom Tov, you will.
You'll actually see a difference during the week. During the week, overweight people eat a decent amount more than thin people do.
But on Shabbos, you're saying it's extremely more.
Much bigger. And I thought you would be impressed that there's actually a Journal of Religion and Health
Yeah, that
studies from people, and some people think that overweight people don't eat more than thin people, period. Some people think that there's a different reason why
They
they're
just have a
heavy.
slow metabolism.
Yeah, so that's another discussion.
That's a very long discussion.
But overweight people certainly eat substantially more than thin people do, and even more so on Shabbos and Yontif.
So therefore we'll think that, Shabbos is obviously a cause for weight gain.
Yeah, and that reminds me of a text I got from a client who I gave him a diet, and the diet included cholent on Shabbos, a bowl of cholent. When you say I can have a bowl of cholent on Shabbos, does that include kugel and kishka?
Right, yeah. That's how they serve it in some restaurants.
That's how what?
Some places will serve cholent with kishka and kugel.
You think that's
natural.
why he wanted to know if cholent
That's the
includes...
normal way many people eat cholent. Cholent is what?
No, it's not normal. Thin people don't eat cholent like that.
Thin people aren't normal.
Besides for Shabbos, there's other challenges that from people have. Simchas.
Fundraisers.
So take a typical person who's on my diet plan, and it's Sunday night. So what's supper? Leftovers from Shabbos.
Some cholent, some kugel, a little bit of schnitzel.
Yeah, it's a wonderful balanced meal because cholent is the protein, right? Kugel counts as a vegetable.
Yes, because it's made out of a vegetable.
Liver,
mostly.
what's liver? Liver is a second protein.
Oh, good. Protein. Protein is healthy, so that's kind of free.
So you could have as much liver as you want in cholent, and kugel's a vegetable, a free vegetable. Sarcasm hopefully detected.
Protein may be healthy, but calling something a protein does not make it so. Okay? Cholent is not a protein. Cholent has protein. It also has carbohydrates and it also has a lot of fat.
And if you had to call it fat, carbs, or protein, if you had to pick one, it's fat.
Yes.
I find it humorous how many people think there are healthy versions of cholent with rice instead of barley, or they don't serve beans. You did nothing to make it healthier. You made it worse. Barley's just as good as rice, if not slightly better.
Typically, I would say if you're using whole grain brown rice, it kind of is the same.
Yeah.
If you're just switching one grain for another grain in a similar situation, you're not creating any huge difference there.
Exactly, and certainly taking out the beans doesn't make the cholent any healthier. I think it's hilarious the amount of times people say, no, we have a really healthy cholent. We don't have barley, as if there's something wrong with barley, and as if the rice that you put in is better for you than barley. But anyway, so this person has his 3,000 calorie supper because he's having cholent, kugel, and liver, and then he has a parlor meeting afterwards where he has something similar but a slight variation. He has, again, cholent, kugel, kishka, but also sesame chicken.
Some variation. Variation is good. Variety, very helpful for a diet.
Sesame chicken is 1,600 calories for a portion. Most people know that it's full of oil, flour, and sugar or corn syrup. But what most people don't realize, a major source of calories and carbohydrates is the cornstarch that gives it its consistency. You know how hard it is to be good at a parlor meeting? You sit there for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours.
It's also pretty boring because there's not really much happening. And you have social pressure because everyone else is eating around you.
I have a client who goes to so many parlor meetings. He hosts some parlor meetings, and he'll bring a huge fruit platter, which he has to sponsor. And then he gets made fun of by everyone because he's bringing fruit platter to the parlor meeting. And then everyone, after making fun of him and eating all the sesame chicken and whatever, they go over to his fruit platter and they eat it.
Right. Well, if there's nothing left, they'll even eat fruit. There we go. Fruit is healthy, so even though I already had 3,500 calories, if I eat fruit, I could eat another 500 calories.
Oh,
it's fruit.
Absolutely. So you see how a Sunday night, after the leftovers from Shabbos and then the parlor meeting, we have certain challenges that other demographics don't. From people also are not necessarily as into looks or as into fitness as the general population.
It's true that it's not the be-all, end-all of life. It's not a reason to not take care of yourself.
So why don't you contribute some more reasons why people think Orthodox Jews are more overweight than the general population?
Food is an acceptable vice. It's a kosher outlet, as they say. And so it's an easy thing to enjoy yourself and not do anything wrong. And you're just enjoying yourself.
Right. And in the frum world, and it varies along different sects of the frum population, but there's generally a limit on what type of outlets we engage in. And food is universally accepted.
Yes. So it's very easy to use this as a reason to think that Orthodox Jews would be more overweight than the regular population. So why are they wrong for believing this?
Do you mean why are you wrong for believing this?
Why am I wrong? How is it that frum Jews are not overweight? At least not as overweight as the general population.
So even though we mentioned some disadvantages that Orthodox Jews have, they have many advantages, and the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. A major advantage frum people have is that they don't eat meat and dairy together, and they wait in between eating meat and dairy.
So what's the significance of that?
Well, Duddy, I know that one of your pet peeves is that milk is not so dietetic.
Yes, if anyone wants to know what my pet peeve is, milk, a cup of milk, for example, even skim milk, has as much sugar as a cup of Powerade.
Slightly more, a half a gram more.
Slightly more, but I don't want to shock people. There's slightly more calories from sugar than Powerade.
And a lot more calories than Powerade.
Milk has protein, but I'm not going to knock the protein aspect.
Milk isn't unhealthy. Milk is pretty healthy. It's just not so dietetic. But the point is that dairy starts off as milk, and of course, you add insane amounts of fat and sugar to it to make milkshakes and cheesecakes, or salt and oil and whatnot to make pizza and pastas.
And all the different cheeses are all primarily fat.
So dairy is generally way more fattening than meat. And given that Orthodox Jews do not eat so much dairy,
because they're not allowed to at certain times, because you can't eat it with meat and you can't eat it soon after eating meat.
Right. Orthodox Jews eat so much less dairy than the general population, because the general population eats dairy with their meat. They don't wait after eating meat. There are so many fattening dairy foods like cheesecake and milkshakes, and I mean, I don't need to tell you.
Yeah, milkshakes are ridiculous. There are milkshakes that are up to 2,000 calories even. For a milkshake, a drink, you drink it and you're done.
And you had more calories than you were supposed to have in 3 meals.
You start off with milk, then you add some ice cream. Not so good. Ice cream is made out of fat and sugar, and then a little bit more sugar and some fat. And then you throw in some cream, which is 40% fat. Literally 40% of it is actual fat. And then to balance out the fat, to give it more flavor, they're going to add some sugar, and then 2 more sugars, and then some fat. And to round it off, they'll do a little combination of fat and sugar. There's your milkshake. Your 2,000 calories, you're done with it in a minute, and it tastes wonderful, but it's not very conducive to healthy weight. So that's an example of a dairy thing that is a very, very unhealthy, very fattening. And being that Orthodox Jews have many situations where they avoid dairy foods, it gives them less of an opportunity to eat the most fattening foods.
And that's well documented. There's a lot of literature about how Orthodox Jews do not consume dairy. It sometimes even works against them. They're low in calcium, they're low in vitamin D, but they certainly weigh less because this limit that they have on dairy. And another advantage that from people have.
Ooh, I know one.
What?
I know an advantage from people have. People who live in big cities don't have this advantage as much, but they do when they travel. Kosher food is much less accessible, much harder to access real kosher food.
So you're saying that when someone from the general population is driving on the highway, they could simply pull over.
Yeah, there are restaurants or fast food chains all over. As far as non-kosher, kosher, you kind of need to be near a Jewish hub to get real kosher food.
So you mentioned that kosher food is not so easily accessible. It also costs more, which is a deterrent.
So kosher food is not available whenever, wherever. It costs more, and
well, kosher food is relatively more dietetic than non-kosher food. Think about it. What class of foods is entirely kosher? The only class of foods that is entirely kosher is plants, fruits, and vegetables.
And those are of the most dietetic foods.
Yeah.
Of the least fattening foods are fruits and vegetables.
And also the kosher meat and kosher fish and kosher food in general tends to be more dietetic than non-kosher food. Another advantage that from people have is that they are used to watching what they eat.
Right. Whenever we go anywhere, you have to check the labels on food.
So it wouldn't be such a stretch if a nutritionist told you to look at a label.
Right. You're looking at the label to see if there's a OU there. Look on the label to see if there is added sugar. Added sugars or total calorie content or fat content. Those are things that nutritionists will often focus on.
And one thing I find interesting, I see firsthand that from people are used to watching what they eat. I see how that is an advantage because my Orthodox Jewish clients are very easily convinced to avoid certain foods on a diet because these foods are off limits on your diet. As opposed to when I work with someone from the general population, they are not so quick to agree. It's a whole new concept that a food should be completely off limits. And it works the other way around too, that Orthodox Jews are much quicker to eat something that is allowed, but eat way too much of it and say, oh, I'm okay. I ate what was on the plan. I just ate too much.
There's another factor, I think, that is kind of connected to the availability and the amount of non-kosher fast food, and that is advertisements, media exposure. These places will have a lot of advertisements, billboards or elsewhere, and to a kosher-keeping person, it means much less. You're not seeing an advertisement for Burger King and saying, oh, I'm going to Burger King, I'll have what's the thing they have, a Whopper. It's not going to do really much to me because I can't get it anyway.
Right. So Orthodox Jews often have less exposure to the media. It depends which demographic. And even when they do have exposure, very often the media is advertising
foods or places that are not necessarily relevant.
Not even kosher.
So we have this myth, as you claim, that Orthodox Jews are more overweight. Who cares why we think someone's overweight? If it's because they're Orthodox or because some other reason, why do we care if people are blaming the fact that someone's Orthodox? That's why they are overweight.
So it's important because this takes away the excuse of Shabbos, Yantif, Simchas, and other challenges that Orthodox Jews have.
And if you take away the excuse, what does that do?
Then you're kind of responsible to accomplish.
And you're also now able to find what the real problem is. Because if you always have the excuse, which isn't the real issue, you'll never realize what the real issue is that you could work on. So even if you have the will to work on whatever issue it is, you can't see it because you're being blocked by your excuses.
So definitely understand that being Orthodox is not a disadvantage. It's actually an advantage. Know what the pros and cons of being Orthodox are with regard to weight. Use the pros to your advantage.
The pros of your situation to your advantage.
And identify what your challenges are, and that will be the first step to overcoming them.
So focus on what you're doing, and whatever your situation is, it will have pros and it will have cons, and you have to look at your own situation and not blame a general population. I am Orthodox, therefore I'm probably going to be obese. It's not my fault. You can take control of it by just understanding your situation, seeing where you have problems, where it's harder for you, where it's easier for you, take advantage of where it's easier, and overcome where it's more difficult.
What I want you to do is stop making excuses and realize that what you think is an excuse is actually not only not an excuse, but it's a benefit that you have, and use it to your advantage and become successful. And that takes us to the end of this episode.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you join us next time.